Hey class, Mr. Hanji here. For today's lesson, we're going to be taking a look at section 19.2, which is going to deal with surface area of prisms and cylinders. So for today's lesson, we have one learning goal, and our learning goal today is that you will be able to find the lateral and surface area of a prism and a cylinder. So we're going to take a look back at prisms, which again, remember, where we have the same base on the top as we do on the bottom, and then the sides are all made up of rectangles. So we're going to look at triangular prisms. We're also going to look at rectangular prisms, where the base, the top, and the bottom are rectangles, as are the sides. And then we're going to bring back in cylinders, where you have your circular base on the top and on the bottom, and a rounded edge. Now, surface area and lateral area. The idea of lateral area is the area of the sides of a prism. So that's going to be all the rectangular sides of your prism. And then the bases, if we add in the bases, that's going to be the surface area. So surface area refers to the area of both triangular bases, the top and the bottom, and then all three sides, or all four sides of your prism. So surface area is the entire outside surface area, so the area of the outside surface. Lateral area is just the area around the sides. So triangular prism, it's going to be the three rectangles. Rectangular prism, it's the area of the four rectangles around. Now, cylinder, same idea. So lateral area is going to be the rounded area around the cylinder, and then surface area includes the area around and the top and bottom. So, surface area is the entire area around the outside surface of your 3D shape. Lateral area is the area of the sides of your shape. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. And that's what this part here talks about, is surface area is the total area of all the faces in curved surfaces of a three-dimensional figure. The lateral area of a prism is the sum of the areas of the lateral faces, the sides. The bases, you add those with the lateral area to tell you the surface area. So, how do we go through and find the surface area of a prism? That's where we're going to start today. So, lateral and surface area of right prisms. Define the lateral area of a prism with the height h and base perimeter p. So, if you see the letter p, that refers to the perimeter of the base. H refers to the height of the prism. So to figure out the lateral area, that is going to be L equals P times H. What that means, to figure out the lateral area, the area of the sides of your prism, is you're going to figure out the perimeter of your base, and then you're going to multiply it by the height of the prism. So if you have a triangular prism, you have to find the perimeter of the triangle and then multiply it by the height of the prism. If you have a rectangular prism, you have to find the perimeter of the rectangle and then multiply it by the height of the prism. Perimeter just means that you add the length of all three or all four sides of your base. So that's how you find lateral area. L equals PH. The perimeter of the base multiplied by the height of the prism. Now, surface area of a prism with lateral area L and base area B is S equals L plus 2B. So what that means is you're going to take your lateral area and you're going to add it with the area of the base times 2. So once you have figured out your lateral area, that's going to be the area of the sides of your prism, you're going to go through and find the area of your base. So if we have a triangular base, you have to find the area of this triangle, multiply it by 2 because you have 2 bases. You're going to add that with the lateral area, and that's going to tell you the surface area, because the lateral area would be the 3 sides, and then the area of the 2 bases tell you the top and the bottom, telling you the full surface area. Now, we could also write surface area as S equals PH plus 2B. Remember, P stands for the perimeter of the base, H stands for the height of the prism, and the capital B stands for the area of the base. So, surface area is lateral area plus 2 times the area of the base, or perimeter multiplied by height plus 2 times the area of the base. So that is going to be our 2 lifelines for example 1. We're going to find the lateral area, so that will tell us what L equals. Then we can figure out the area of the base, and then we can figure out the surface area. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into example 1 for today, where we are going to go through and find the lateral and surface area of some different 3D shapes. Now, the 3D shapes that we're going to spend our time on today is rectangular prisms and triangular prisms. Now, the thing that you will need to know is the area formula for a rectangle, which is length times width, and the area formula of a triangle, which is 1/2 base times height. And that will all come into play here throughout our time. So, for example 1, they want us to go through and find the lateral and surface area of this rectangular prism. So the first thing we need to do is figure out the lateral area. So to figure out lateral area, it is the perimeter of the base multiplied by the height of the prism. Now, perimeter of the base means that we're going to take the base, which is this rectangle right there. We need to figure out the perimeter of that. And to figure out the perimeter of that, you're going to add all 4 sides of that base. Now, because we have a rectangle, opposite sides are equal. So if this side is 8, that means this side is also 8. If this is 6, that means this side is 6. So, to figure out the perimeter, we have to go through and add all 4 sides together to tell us what the perimeter of that base is. So we're going to go through and do 6 plus 8 plus 6 plus 8. So we add all 4 sides, and we get a perimeter of 28. So I now know the perimeter of our base. The other thing we need to know is what is the height of our prism. Okay, the height of the prism is going to be this 12 centimeters. So H equals 12. Alright, now that I figured out my perimeter of the base and I figured out the height of the prism, we can go through and figure out the lateral area. So the lateral area is equal to 28 times 12. So if we do 28 times 12, we get 336 centimeters squared. But we're back to units squared because we're talking area. We're no longer talking volume. And that is our lateral area for our rectangular prism. So what we have done, if we think of this as our rectangular prism, is we went through and found the area of all 4 of the sides. Next, we need to figure out the area of the base, so that way we can figure out the surface area. So I know these four sides now. We need to figure out the area of the base to solve for our surface area. So the next thing we need to do is figure out the area of the base. Now our base is a rectangle. To figure out area of a rectangle, it is length times width. So the length of our rectangle is 8. The width of our rectangle is 6. So we're going to do 8 times 6. And when we do 8 times 6, times, not subtract, we get 48. So 48 is our value for the capital B. Now, to find surface area, the surface area formula is L plus 2B. So it's the lateral area, which we found to be 336, plus 2 times the area of the base. We found the area of the base to be 48. The base is that red shaded area. So we know B to be 48, so it's going to be 2 times 48. So our surface area is equal to 336 plus 2 times 48. 48, like I said, represents the area of this green part. It's the area of our base. And the reason why we're multiplying by 2 is because every prism, you have 2 bases. All right, so if we go through and calculate this out, 336 plus 2 times 48, we get 432 for our surface area. And that is centimeters squared, because again, we're talking area, and area is always units squared. So that is how we go through and find the lateral and surface area of a rectangular prism. All right, so from there, parts B, C, and D are just more examples of finding lateral and surface area of prisms. Each of them have a little bit different reason, and I do want to run through at least a triangular prism for our purposes today. So if we look at B, we have a triangular prism, and a triangular prism means that we have a triangular base and rectangular sides. So we have a triangular base on the top and on the bottom, and the sides are made up of rectangles. Our goal is to go through first and find the lateral area, so the area of the 3 rectangles. Then we're going to find the area of the base to help us find surface area. All right, so for B, let's start with the lateral area. So lateral area is perimeter of the base times the height of the prism. So our base is this triangle right here. Now, they tell us that this side of the base is 10 and this side is 24. Now, they don't tell us this side, but I've provided it for this problem, and it is 26. If you can't read that fully, that is a 26. So we know all 3 sides for our base, so that is going to help us figure out our perimeter. So it's going to be 10 plus 24 plus 26. Add all 3 sides of your base, that's going to tell you your perimeter. So if we do 10 plus 24 plus 26, we get a perimeter of 60. So I now know the perimeter of our base. The next thing we need to know is the height of our prism. And the height of our prism in this case is 20. So that means our value for h is 20. So I now have my value for p, the perimeter of the base, and my value for h, which is the height of the prism. So to figure out lateral area, we're going to do p times h. So that means we're going to have 60 times 20. So if we do 60 times 20, our lateral area is 1,200, 1,200 inches squared. All right, so now that we have lateral area, we can go through and figure out our surface area. Surface area is L plus 2B. The lateral area plus 2 times the area of the base. Now, we already know our lateral area to be 1,200, but we need to first figure out the area of our base. Now, area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. Now, because they gave us a right triangle, okay, we do not want to use the hypotenuse for one of our numbers, yet we want to use the two legs. So that means we want to use 10 and 24 for our base and our height. So it's 1/2 times 10 times 24. So if we do 1/2 times 10 times 24, we get an area of 120 for our triangular base. So I now know what my value of capital B is. We already know what our lateral area is, so we're just going to plug 1,200 in for L, and we're going to plug 120 in for B. So surface area equals 1,200 plus 2 times 120. So if we do 1,200 plus 2 times 120, we get 1,440 inches squared for our surface area. And that is how you go through and figure out the lateral and surface area of a triangular prism. Start with lateral area. Find the perimeter of your base, multiply it by the height of the prism. That tells you your lateral area. To figure out surface area, you're going to take your lateral area, add it with 2 times the area of your base. So you have to figure out the area of your base, in this case a triangle, and as we saw with part A, in this case a rectangle. And then that tells you lateral and surface area for your prisms. Alright, so that should give you a pretty good feel for how to go through and find lateral and surface area. I do want to take a quick look and highlight a few things for C and D before we move on to cylinders. Alright, so for C, we have a rectangular prism. Now, rectangular prism for C is very similar to what we did in part A. So this part right here is going to be our base, meaning that is our base. So you would go through and find the perimeter of that, and then you're going to go through and use the height figure out your lateral area. Once you have that, then you can go through and find your surface area by finding the area of the base. This one, I would follow exactly what we did in part A. Same thing with D. You're going to follow the same steps that we used in part B, except the difference with this one, okay, what I want to talk about real quick. If we start this problem by finding the lateral area, okay, it's perimeter times the height of the prism. I know the height of the prism to be 8.5, and when you're doing height of prisms, you need to do the length of the rectangular side. Now, we have to figure out the perimeter of our base, which is this triangle right here. So, we have to figure out the perimeter of this triangle. Well, I know this side to be 6, but I do not know the measure of this side. So, they do not tell me one of the side lengths I need to know. So how do you figure this out? Well, because we have a right triangle, and we know two side lengths of a right triangle, and we're trying to find a missing side length, when we know two side lengths of a right triangle, that indicates we need to use the Pythagorean Theorem. So, for part B, I told you that missing side length was 26, so that way we could really focus more on finding lateral and surface area. Sometimes in triangular prisms, they will not tell you one of the side lengths of your triangle. So they told me this one's 3.6 and this one is 6, but we do not know this measure to tell us what our value of P is. I can figure out everything else except our perimeter. So what we need to do is figure out what this measure here is, which we can call x, by using the Pythagorean Theorem. The side opposite the right angle is our hypotenuse, which is 6. So that means we're going to set up the Pythagorean Theorem as 3.6 squared plus x squared equals 6 squared. So if we go through and figure out the value of x, we're going to do 3.6 to the power of 2, which gives us 12.96 plus x squared equals 36, because 6 to the power of 2 is 36. We're going to subtract this over, and we get 23.04. So we now have x squared equals 23.04. To solve for x, we're going to take the square root of that 23.04, which tells us x equals 4.8. So I now know that this side length right here is 4.8. So I now know all three sides of my base, so I can figure out my perimeter by adding 3.6, 6, and 4.8. So if we do 6 plus 3.6 plus 4.8, we get 14.4. So lateral area is perimeter of the base, which we know is 14.4, times by the height of the prism, which is 8.5. So if we multiply those two things together, we get a lateral area of 122.4. So after we have our lateral area, after we've taken the perimeter of the base, where we add all the sides of the base, multiply it by the height of the prism, that tells us our lateral area. So we now know the area of the three rectangular sides. We now have to figure out the area of the triangular base so we can plug it into our surface area formula. Now, area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. The base of our triangle is 4.8. The height of our triangle is 3.6. So we're going to do 1/2 times 4.8 times 3.6. So if we do 0.5 times 4.8 times 3.6, that tells us the area of our triangular base is 8.64. So this is the value of our capital B. So from there, we can figure out our surface area, which is the lateral area plus 2 times the area of the base. We know our lateral area to be 122.4. And we know our area of the base to be 8.64. So it's going to be 2 times 8.64. So from here, all we have to do is calculate. So 122.4, which is our lateral area, plus 2 times the area of the base, which is 8.64. And that gives us a total surface area of 139.68. And that is our surface area for part D. So be careful to make sure that you have all the dimensions for all your sides of your base, because that's going to be important to figure out the perimeter of the base. So refresher, lateral area is perimeter of the base, so you're going to add all the sides of the base, multiplied by the height of your prism. Surface area is your lateral area that we just figured out from that P times H, plus 2 times the area of the base. So you have to figure out the area of the base, whether it's a triangle or a rectangle, multiply that by 2 and add it to the surface area, or the lateral area. And that tells you your surface area. So that is how you go through and find lateral and surface area of prisms. The most extensive you will have to deal with is triangles or rectangle for prisms. Just a refresher, area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, and area of a rectangle is length times width. You will need to know one of these two formulas for the area of your base. That's going to be that capital B in the surface area formula. That's going to tell you this part. All right, so that is how you find surface area and lateral area of prisms. The next thing we want to talk about is lateral and surface area of cylinders. So, for the lateral area of a cylinder, it is the area of the curved surface that connects the two bases. Now, the lateral area of a cylinder with radius r and height h is L equals 2 pi r h. So for lateral area of a cylinder, okay, that means we're trying to find the side of our cylinder or our can. So we're trying to figure out the area of this curved part. Surface area is going to take the area of this curved part plus the area of the two bases. All right, so that is how you find lateral area, is that 2 pi rh. Then for surface area, it's going to be the surface area of a cylinder with the lateral area L, and base area B is the same thing, L plus 2B. So it's the lateral area plus the area of the two bases. And we can form that out to the lateral area, this 2 pi rh is the lateral area, plus 2 pi r squared, which is going to be the area of the two bases. So you can think of it this way for surface area, or we can think of surface area equals L plus 2 pi r squared. So I'm going to use this purple, the SA equals L plus 2 pi r squared, when we go through and find surface area, and I'm going to use this for lateral. Instead of rewriting and replugging everything back in after we find lateral area, we might as well just use that number already. So with that said, let's go through and practice in example 2, finding the lateral and surface area of cylinders. All right, example 2, they want us to find the lateral and surface area of the following figures, the cylinders. Leave it in terms of pi and round to the nearest tenth. All right, so let me slide this down a touch. And what I'm going to do is write that lateral area is equal to 2 pi r h, and surface area is equal to the lateral area plus 2 pi r squared. So that's the two formulas that we're going to use to figure out lateral and surface area of our cylinders. Now, if you look at our two formulas, the only two things we need to know is the radius of the cylinder and then the height of the cylinder. So if we know those two things, we can go through and figure out lateral and surface area. All right, so if we look at example 2, part A, for our cylinder, they tell us the radius is 3, and the height is 9. So now that we know our radius and we know our height, we know everything we need to figure out our lateral and surface area for this problem. All right, so let's start with lateral area. That is 2 pi r h. We know r to be 3 and h to be 9. So it becomes 2 pi times 3 times 9, which tells us a lateral area. Because they want it in terms of pi and then rounded, we're going to go through and just multiply the numbers first. So 2 times 3 times 9. So that gives us 54 pi. So that is going to be our lateral area. And then if they want us to multiply it in to round to the nearest tenth, so 1 decimal place, we're going to do times pi, and we get 169.6. So we have now found our lateral area. Now that we have our lateral area, we can go through and figure out our surface area. Now, surface area is the lateral area plus 2 pi r squared. We know our lateral area to be 54 pi. I'm going to use in terms of pi whenever I plug it in for lateral area. And we know our radius to be 3. So it's going to be L equals 54 pi plus 2 pi 3 squared. Because we need our answer in terms of pi, that's why I used the 54 pi instead of the decimal, because you can't rework your way back from that. So we want to start with the pi, so that's why we do 54 pi, and because we want it in terms of pi, we need to calculate the 3 squared times 2. So 3 to the power of 2 is 9, times 2 gives us 18. So this becomes 54 pi plus 18 pi. So for our surface area, we're just going to add 54 and 18, and we get 72 pi for our surface area in terms of pi. And then if we want to round to the nearest tenth, we're going to multiply pi to 72, and we get 226.19, so we're going to call that 0.2. And that tells us our surface area of the cylinder. So our lateral area is 54 pi, so that refers to this part right here. The surface area is that part plus the area of the two bases. And that is 72 pi, or 226.2. So that is how you go through and figure out lateral and surface area of a cylinder. Figure out your radius, figure out your height, and then you just plug everything into the formulas. Okay, cylinders are very straightforward. The only bit of information you might have to discover is like with parts B and D, where they tell you the diameter, they don't tell you the radius. So you have to divide this by 2 to give you your R. So for B, that would be 2.5, and then we know our height to be 2. All you need is your radius and your height. Then you can take those and plug them into your formulas. For lateral area, 2 pi RH. In your surface area, which is your lateral area plus 2 pi r squared. Find your radius, find your height, plug everything into your formulas, and calculate. So I'm not going to run through all the other ones for cylinders because it's just more of the same, and this video has gone on far long enough. So with that said, that is it for today's lesson on section 19.2 on surface area and lateral area of prisms and cylinders. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope the examples give you some guidance on what to do for the homework. As always, be sure to reference back to the video or the completed notes, as I have all of the examples done, so you can reference them as a good example and a reference for your homework. Otherwise, that is it for today. As always, if you have questions on the notes or the homework, please do not hesitate to reach out and let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you however I can. So just let me know either next time you see me or send me an email. Otherwise, that's it for today. Thank you guys for listening. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, bye.